Hello, you're very welcome along to All Ireland Review Show for the Attacking Sport podcast. It's Daniel here, joined alongside me by my brother Sean.
How's it going?
And delighted to welcome on the line once again Portlaoise Senior Ladies manager Stephen Duff. Stephen, welcome to the show and Dublin's six in a row.
Thanks, guys. Yes, it was a hard wake up this morning and then yesterday morning, and another year of Dublin being champions, and listening to the text messages fly in to remind us of it, and we're going to hear it for another year. So yeah, I mean, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, and the next 50 minutes, I'm sure you'll be delighted to go through
Yeah.
each incident little bit. Sean, get your thoughts first. What were your thoughts overall on the game? It was just probably a classic Dublin Mayo game in terms of Mayo always giving Dublin that goal head start and Mayo getting back into it. But then it probably petered out towards the end in what could have been a pretty decent All-Ireland final. I think Dublin took initiative in the second half, particularly with their substitutions.
Yeah, I think the game was probably, people talking about that third quarter, but, when Dublin were down to 14 men, Mayo didn't attack. And at one stage, I think it might have been the 38th minute where Dublin had the ball and Owen Merchant had it. And I looked to make sure that Dublin were ahead, because the way Mayo were sitting back, it was almost as if, let's take these 10 minutes and make sure we're still in the game by 10 minutes time. They're obviously still have scars from last year and years gone by where Dublin come out of the traps after half time. So I think that was a real missed opportunity, because not only had you a 10 minutes in bin, it coincided with half time. So it's a real chance to regroup. And, I think looking back now, Mayo, rather than just trying to hang in the game, I think they would have been better off to attack Dublin and see what Dublin are like straight away, and kind of shock them. Because, I think if you try and stay in a game as long with Dublin, I mean, they've got the superior fitness and probably the mindset to outlast anyone. And you've seen that with Kerry in the past, when Kerry have come back at Dublin, and you think, is this the end of the Dublin team? They just find a way. And I think that's, I'd say if James Horan had it again, he might attack a little bit more after half time. But and I must say that considering the goal head start, I mean, there was nothing there that surprised you about Mayo, because it's what we've seen before. I mean, the brilliance of some of the point taking and the kick pass, and likes of Loftus and Rowan from midfield, who we thought would struggle in midfield, but Damon O'Connor played so well in and around that middle third. But the classic kicking wides and running into challenges and running down blind alleys and kicking the ball. I said it's the Mayo wide where you kick it into the keeper's hands. I mean, I think they had 6 or 7 of them. So I think they'll rue their missed chances, but I mean, ultimately over the last 10 years, I think they probably get what they deserve without being harsh. I think they haven't kicked on at the big moments that other counties have, and especially that Dublin team. And I kind of think it's the end of the road for a lot of those players. The likes of Keith Higgins, maybe Lee Keegan has another year or two. Same with O'Shea. But I just think for that team that we witnessed, that unbelievable Mayo team, I think it's sort of the end of the road. And I think the newcomers have to come on and take it forward.
Yeah, Stephen, I guess picking up something Sean said there, and we were watching the game together, we picked up as well. It seemed like Dublin were kicking wides, and Mayo's wide is the kick into the keeper's hands. And it just seemed to be not just a recurring theme for this year's final, but for the last few finals of Dublin and Mayo.
Yeah, and just to pick up as well on what Sean said, we know that Dublin's game management is probably the best we've ever seen. They're a group of players and a backroom team that just know how to figure a team out. So if you are there and you're trying to stay in the game with Dublin until the 60 or 70 minute, and I felt that's all Mayo were trying to do, is that they were trying to keep hold of Dublin until that point, and then they were going to attack them. When really, it was really disappointing to see him come out after half time, when Dublin have had their screens on the wall, they've had their video clips, they've had their tactics boards, and they're figuring Mayo out. They're putting right all the wrongs they did in the first half, and they're attacking that third quarter. That Mayo just didn't put on another forward or leave another player up top, and really made them think about it. And instead, what they did is they sat a sweeper in front of their full back line. And Dublin are not a junior C team who don't understand what a sweeper is. They're not going to kick that ball directly down on top of your standing sweeper, your orthodox sweeper sitting in front of your full back. It was just a disappointing opportunity missed that James Horn didn't come out of that halftime and say, look, deal with this, and they really take the game to Dublin and almost have a plan B game plan going into the second half, because Dublin will have figured their plan A out and what they started with. And Dublin did, and if they really went and attacked the game for that second 10 minutes just after half time, we could be talking about a much more exciting game. If they maybe had to put that extra forward in around Aidan O'Shea at 14, and we're a little bit more direct, I'm just put it in high, see, not all the time, but just seeing who we could get around Aidan O'Shea, and just see something different because Dublin figured them out. The joys that Mayo got in the first half were kind of eradicated come the second half. And it was just another thing of Dublin are going to manage this game out. Dublin probably could have won by 8, 9, 10 points if they wanted to, but they were happy enough with the way they won. Mayo were sitting back. They were just going to hold on to that ball and wind down the clock and keep Mayo away from the game. But yeah, as I said, on the wides, Mayo at sometimes their own worst enemy. And at times they looked like they were playing in their first final. They were just naive, running down into dark alleyways, running into tackles. I know a lot of them are in their first final, but they're young, but you'd think the likes of Aidan O'Shea, Lee Keegan, Keith Higgins, and David Clark, all these guys who played multiple finals will have that experience to spread around. Keep the ball, wait for your chance, spread the defence, like what Dublin do. But it just looked like sometimes they were just like taking pot shots that they weren't comfortable with. They were being forced into passes that weren't passes. And then the odd one goes and it looks brilliant. And you're like, okay, Mayo can actually do this. And you're bought in and you're all in on Mayo. And then again, they kick another 2 straight into Cluxton's hands and he just builds another slow attack out. And it comes up one wing, comes around to the far wing, and then you hit the space down the middle. And it was telegraph move all the time. It worked for them, and Dublin just managed that game and constricted Mayo, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, take it back to the first goal and the first 10 seconds, almost a carbon copy of Dublin Merchants' goal against Kerry in the second half of last year's All-Ireland final. Is there a case now for teams, especially in big games like All-Ireland finals, to almost to do the throw-in uncontested? Because like if you lose the throw-in, it's suddenly Dublin have these one-on-one battles in the forward line that they're probably never going to have at the rest of the game.
Yeah, and when you move players around for the throw-in, I know Aidan O'Shea played in and around midfield, and I know Kerry used to do it with Donaghy. I'm probably not the biggest fan of that unless you are 100% sure that he's going to win the ball, because say for example Aidan O'Shea in a foot race against James McCarthy, there's only going to be one winner. If Conor Loftus or maybe Matthew Rowan's there, maybe he gets a hand in, or maybe he makes a good foul or something like that. It's just classic Mayo. They got drawn into Dublin's movement. It's something that Dublin are known for. They've worked on it. If you watch Dublin games, every time they do win the throw, and it's straight for the juggler, whether it's the centre back coming through, whether it's the midfield. And I think that probably typifies where Mayo have been. I'm sure James Horan did all the preparation on the mindset, and I'm sure they looked into the throw-in. But I think in that split second when they lose it, it was almost, there was an air of inevitability when McCarthy passed it to Scully, and Scully had made the run on the loop, and all of a sudden there was 20 yards of space in front of that full back line for Mayo. And that's something that, if you think of that Mayo team, I can always envisage about 20 yards of space down the middle of the pitch when Dublin play them. And, when you've James McCarthy and Brian Fenton running down at you, it doesn't leave you in a good position. And, Dean Rock has a tap in, and, after 13 seconds, it's credit to Mayo for coming back. But I think it's probably classic Mayo in that sense. And, we keep talking about them, how or why they'll never win in All Ireland, but I think it's moments like that in the split second where Dublin are probably just that superior to them, where they can just punish them.
Yes, Stephen, pick up something that you were thinking there, that the Mayo players would be too concerned for their matchups, and almost people going into the game, the likes of ourselves on Thursday, are probably too concerned for the matchups, particularly in that first 30 seconds when your job is, let's not concede a goal against Dublin again.
We've all been there, that first second of a big game, and you've been told you were on Conor O'Callaghan. I've never been told I've been on Conor O'Callaghan. You were on X, Y, or Z. You've been sent into Kieran Kilkenny, get tight, we need you to win your first ball, the usual stuff. And the ball gets thrown up, and you're literally standing on their toes, and any move they make, you're mirroring it, and you're trying to get in their head. And all of a sudden, Con makes a run out to the sideline, Kilkenny makes a run out to the other sideline. Now Scully's drawing a player away, and you're following because you want to win that first ball. And next thing you know, the thoroughfare is open, and straight down the middle they go. And it's happened twice in finals now, and it's after throw-ins, and it's as clear as day. There's a lot to be said for just the game intelligence of knowing where your marker is and knowing where the ball is. The two things you've been told since you're under 10, of knowing where your marker is and knowing where your ball is, and putting the team first. And you winning that first individual battle and winning that first ball is probably at that time not what's best for the team. And a lot of the defenders need to get back to of where's my player and where's the ball. Conor O'Callaghan's out on the sideline there. He's not a danger. I need to block up the middle. And it's something that Dublin actually are very good at. And I didn't notice how quick they can do it until the final is. How quick they can retreat to the scoring zone once somebody has breached their first line of defence. if you watch it, someone gets in and someone gets close to their scoring zone, how quick Dublin actually retreat to that scoring zone. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that they're not conceding goals. It's just they know their role. They have that sweeper that changes from Owen Merchant and James McCarthy, whoever else can drop in. But how quick everyone knows to get back to the scoring zone once they've been breached, and then their roles, they're not, there's no one standing there as an extra player, just being an extra player. They all have a role on the scoring zone. So that was something that I noticed. And yeah, like just a bit of game intelligence. Know where the ball is, know where your player is. What's more dangerous at that point in time.
Apparently, Mayo's six All-Ireland finals since 2012. Mayo's opposition's first score has been a goal, Sean, which kind of reiterates what we were talking about, that this is not just a common for Dublin to attack and do, but it's also a common thing for Mayo to, in these big games, almost need that goal to wake them up. And the goal did wake them up because they got the next 3 scores.
But if you look at nearly, like every time you watch Dublin, they look like I said it on the other show, they look like they have a man over on every attack. They just use the space so well. The likes of Dean Rock peel off. Niall Scuddy makes a run in, and all of a sudden he's got 2 options left or right. Robbie McDay got his goal in the semi-final. Sean Bugler's got his goal earlier on the championship from just making a run in and fisting it, and then Con's goal's a fist. They always have a man over. They just use the space so well. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether it's a legacy from Jim Gavin or it's something Desi has really worked on this year, getting extra bodies in and around that, that goal scoring zone. But, if you're Mayo, even if you make some sort of foul at the throw in or throw up or whatever, and, it kind of stunk of just, if you're a Dublin player after that goal, it's almost as if, okay, we know what we're expecting here. Yes, they're going to come back, but we know it's roughly the same Mayo team. It's sort of that, soft underbelly, if you like. And, I don't like to be too critical on a team that got to an All-Ireland final, but, people have been speaking about this Mayo team for a long, long time. And, probably, in 2014, 2015, maybe you'd be saying, okay, that's harsh what they're saying about Mayo. Maybe this sort of celebrity losers or, lack of a winning.
Well, the Joe Brolly was the celebrity culture.
Yeah. And I'm not saying they are, but I think maybe it's just got into them, or maybe because they haven't been able to change it. And when, they've had some magic moments, that Mayo team, but when it really comes to it in the crunch of an All-Ireland final or a semi-final against your Dublin or Kerry, they can't find a way. And it's,
well, just on that, Sean, because I think that's a little bit harsh. Firstly, that's sorry. So 4 Mayo's 6 All-Irelands, their first goal they've conceded is a goal. So that 2012, 16, 17, and then 2020. But going back to there, they haven't played Kerry in All-Ireland finals. It's just been coming up against this and the semi-finals. That's fair enough. But it just feels like they're coming up against the greatest team that's ever played the game. And in 2016, they should have beaten them, but. Like two own goals. Like, it's not like a team goes out and scores those 2 own goals. Like, you look at how unfortunate those goals were. And then 2017, it was a 50-50 game that could have gone either way. And this year, they're the only team that put it up to Dublin.
Yeah, well, Kerry didn't get to play Dublin, and Donegal didn't play Dublin and Tyrone. But I think with like you talk about the 2 own goals, I mean, that's not just the player. Like, I mean, the changing of, your goalkeepers and changing your managers and like the classic stuff. Like, a lot of the stuff that's been done hasn't helped them. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's just. Hopefully hopefully we can see that this new group of players get and try and get to that same level of, intensity and brilliance that Mayo team had with your likes of Keegan and Higgins and the 2 O'Sheas. But I think it'll be a tough ask for a few more years. Like, I think James Horan, like a lot of people said, was brought in on a sort of a 3-year project. I think with the way it's happened with COVID and, winning the Connacht Championship, I think that was a huge plus from this year, and getting to an All-Ireland final, playing Tipperary, a Division 3 team in a semi, would have been a big plus. And I think he would have seen this as a bit of a shot in the dark. But going forward now, like, I'm not sure. I think with the quick turnaround, it might help some players stay on for another year, and maybe with COVID, they can't do as much. They maybe can't travel or, settle down or whatever. So I think, whether the likes of Keith Higgins, whether David Clark stay for another year, guys who've been in and around this Mayo team for a long, long time and haven't, like I said, climbed the steps of the Hogan stand, whether they still have the motivation to come back. But I think a lot of them will still think they've unfinished business. Look, you can't speak about the game really without speaking about how big a loss Paddy Durkin was at half time. And I presume, I'm not sure if much has come out about the injury, but, Kieran Kilkenny had the freedom at Croke Park there for the last 20 minutes, and he kicked his 3 big points or 2 big points when he needed to And up until that first 20 minutes, I think, Paddy Durkin was doing a very good job.
Stephen, do you kind of go along with that narrative a little bit that Mayo have kind of possibly thrown away? Well, obviously they've been very close in All Ireland finals, but I personally would put it down to a lot more luck than.
We pause for a second. I just have to let a guy into the apartment. You're probably right, Dan. They're probably they have lived the likes of Aidan O'Shea, the likes of Lee Keegan have lived that way for some time now. But they come at a wrong time. The Dublin team that have started now is just nearly unstoppable. It's a bit of a juggernaut, and maybe if you're Aidan O'Shea or you're Lee Keegan or you're Clark and you haven't got your Higgins and your Boyles and all these players and Andy Moore and Tom Parsons and all these players who are actually great players, it's just come at the wrong time for them. And people say that the financial doping and all that is there. You just can't deny that this team is probably one of the best teams around that we've ever seen. And whether they had the financial doping or not, or whatever you want to call it, they were always going to be a great team because that heritage is there amongst these players. All their dads play for Dublin. This was always going to come. It's what's coming after this is the scary piece. And for the Mayo players, they have the heart, they have the hunger. There is something, the X factor that is lacking, but it has just come at the wrong time for them. So you can't. The answer, it's partially right what you're saying. There's partially a large part of it is the timing. If it was any other year, they probably would have won 2 All Irelands, but just not this time.
Yeah, Sean, just finally want to finish up on this because I don't think it's fair what Joe Brolly was saying in his piece. He said they shook their heads and refused to go to war in the dying moments against Dublin in 15, 16, 17. He says the group is doomed and will not win in All Ireland until the celebrity culture is banished by a manager who is not himself part of celebrity culture. I think that's absolute nonsense.
No, I wasn't saying it was entirely right. I was saying this is
no,
what
I know
Tom
that,
said.
Yeah. But would you completely disagree with that, or would you kind of see where he's come?
I can kind of half see, because you've got to remember, chances, and how many times now do you say, oh look, they've been unlucky with this Dublin team, and I think Joe Brolly is probably a tad harsh. I think I kind of understand where he's coming at, as in that big moment where that side hasn't been able to take it. And to be honest, you could say the same about Kerry last year, and maybe it is a common team with Dublin. But I just, there's something about that Mayo team that I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the dressing room and see what's said even in the weeks previous to the game, because there always just seems to be that little bit of a block where Mayo don't really produce that perfect game, if you like, and at times Dublin have in those games. And even that.
Well, I would disagree, right? So the Dublin 16 first game, Dublin didn't show up, and the 2 own goals meant that Mayo drew it. So Mayo were the better team there. So it's not that Mayo haven't shown up in the perfect game. Like a lot of the 2017 they showed up. So I think it's 2 goals, well, 2 own goals in the 16 first game, but they were still the better team. You just said they didn't show up and don't play the perfect game, but they were by far the better team.
As in, you could pinpoint moments in those games where Mayo have either lost the ball by doing something stupid, or going for a glorious point, or dropping it short. And that's what I mean. The only time I've seen probably that those Dublin players do stuff like that is a couple of last year in against Kerry, when Brian Howard took a point, tried to shoot with the outside of his boot, put it wide. I think Niall Scully did one a couple of minutes later. Niall Scully came off in that final, and you don't really put down those things with Dublin. I think Dermot Connolly had one 2 or 3 years ago against Kerry where I think he lost the sideline ball. And that's what I mean. You can pinpoint moments down to Mayo where Mayo have done that. And maybe it is, the heartbreak they're carrying on their shoulders, and maybe because of, the curse of 51 or whatever you want to say. But they always just seem to, in that moment, there's always a decision that either the referee gives, or they make, or they, drop a ball, or something happens, or the keeper makes a mistake, or they, change the keepers. I don't think everything. That's what I said. I'd love to know what happens in that dressing room. I'd love to know, because there was all the stuff with the player power over the joint managers, and then Rochford came in, and everyone thought Rochford would get them there, and so there's just something there because they've tried everything. So I'd love to know whether it's just, they've overachieved, or whether it's something in that in their a sort of a mental block that they just can't get themselves over the line. Because, I think people have said they've had, some of the best footballers to play Gaelic games in the last 10 years. And you've had players at different stages, Lee Keegan, who sort of dominated and won Player of the Year and won All-Stars, and then the likes of Andy Moore, and then who was sort of a later bloomer that started when he was younger and then kind of dipped off and then reached those heights again in 2015, 16. So I think I'd just love to know what's going on, because how many times can they keep getting to that stage where we kind of question, maybe they are overachieving and maybe that's it, and maybe they've overachieved and not won as many Connachts, and because of that they've had to put the running in their legs in the qualifiers. But I think you should sort of ask the question, what has happened to them? And they've, like I said, they've tried everything. Rochford, joint managers, they've tried to bring James Horan back this year, who I think, obviously with COVID, it's hard to know how well, he'd progressed that Mayo team, and Division 2 football next year is going to be really tough for them. Or maybe it could be a blessing with some of their younger players. So I just think, when you get so far that many times, and just don't quite get over the line, I would be a little bit skeptical as to why. But like I said, like whether it's Donny Vaughan's red card in that final against John Small, like
17,
like none of the Dublin players would go in after someone has taken John Small's got a red card. Mayo had the game in their hand, and that's the kind of, I don't know whether it's a mental thing, whether they think too much about it, but like I said, you do have to kind of question why they haven't got over the line. And they have done extremely well to match this Dublin team, if you like, and they were the guys in the early stages that matched them, and Dublin are taking this game to the new level, and Mayo and Kerry have pushed them on. But there's too many times where I think I can look at it and go, someone's taken a shot where they shouldn't have, someone's given the ball away, or put a stupid foul in, or got a red card. And I think when that happens repeatedly over a 5-6 year period, I think you've got to ask the question, what's actually going on in that dressing room.
Yeah, like you said, with the Mayo wide that we call it, the kick straight into the keeper's hands. Yeah, Stephen, a fine point on Mayo before we move on to the game more, but like they have been in 9 All-Ireland semi-finals since 2011, so you do think they probably should have got over the line at this point, I guess.
Yeah, like as Sean said earlier, Aidan O'Shea, I didn't even realise this. He was 32, he's 33 this year. Like he's crept up on that age all of a sudden, and like Lee Keegan's the same. You take the two of them out of that team, and it's a really inexperienced team. Like you're looking then to the likes of David O'Connor to be the most experienced player, and it's just, can that team continue straight away and pick up exactly without them big players? I don't know. But also psychologically, like on what Sean's point, like psychologically, it must be so hard for Mayo year after year. Part of them must be some of them thinking, will they ever win it, or can they ever win it, and is this curse actually real? And if you're starting to think that, you don't have that positive mindset going in, like it's natural to have these doubts. But these type of things have to be kind of playing on their mind a little bit, and just trying to, like, it's a tough place to be, and to get back on the horse year after year. And maybe they do need to clear out. This is me just listening, thinking out loud, and maybe they do need totally start fresh. Maybe that was part of James Horan's plan, to get the younger guys playing with the likes of Aidan O'Shea, Lee Keegan, these guys for a year or two, and then let's get them going, because maybe they need that total naivety, inexperience. They don't know anything about losing these finals, and maybe they need a fresh go at it. Because what's they've been doing for the past 11 years or so, whatever it is, hasn't worked and isn't working and doesn't look like it's going to work. So they're going to need to try something else. It was disappointing in that 10 minutes after the second half that they didn't try something else. I thought that was a real opportunity to try something new, different, a little bit strange, a little bit different, that they probably wouldn't be known for doing, but they didn't do it. They stuck to the tried and tested of what's worked for Mayo in the past. And what's the saying? If you keep trying the same thing and expecting different results, it's insanity. So I don't know. They're going to need to try something different anyway.
That's what I'm kind of saying. And like, I think it was when James Horan was working on Sky a few years ago, someone mentioned the curse, and he kind of looked as if, not, it was kind of as if, it's not that it's real, but they know, and they kind of, talk about it and try to break it. And so it's not only that, it's not only that you're trying to carry the Mayo scars that have happened and the scars that they have. You're also trying to break down this thing that everyone in the country knows about. Everyone knows the last time Mayo won an All-Ireland. And it's just, that's what I mean. Like, I'd love to, that's what I'm saying. I'd love to know what are they changing year on year? What are they bringing differently? And like I said, they've been brilliant. So they've probably given us some of the best Gaelic matches we've seen over the last number of years. But I think Kerry really took the game to Dublin when Cooper got red carded, and that's what I mean when the black card happened there.
No, that they didn't. They definitely didn't. They were 5 points down with about 15 minutes to go, Kerry. I think that's a narrative now, and then they got back into the game after Dublin missed a goal chance, and
But
then
they
Kerry
took
went up the
on
end and scored.
no, they brought on Spillane and Walsh in the full forward line, and they
But,
really drove in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, they definitely after half time they didn't, and for a long period of time, Kerry had the game lost, and Dublin probably should have put the game. It's just I think that's a lazy enough narrative to say Kerry took the game, because Kerry should have won that game against 14.
But they brought on a full forward and a corner forward to push Dublin back.
But they didn't bring Tommy Walsh on at half time.
Yeah, but they kind of, yeah, I suppose. But like Mayo, yeah, but I think a black card's different than when you have 10 minutes. Whereas like a red card, you have 14, so you can kind of bring on the full forward. Like I would have like Dublin. I'd actually like to know. I don't know how many minutes Dublin had possession for.
Yeah.
But it was just like I said, I looked at Merchant Soul on the ball, and I was like, I actually looked to make sure Dublin were ahead, and that's what I mean. Like, it's different when you have 10 minutes, but I think Kerry knew Dublin had 14, so they brought on Tommy Walsh, they brought on Spillane, Philly Mack then had to come on for Dublin, so they're changing. Whereas like Mayo, because it's 10 minutes, they were like, well, if we're still in the game in another 10 minutes, that's good for us. And I think that's probably, Dublin are so difficult to score goals against. Probably the easiest time to do it is when they're down to 14. And Spillane got his goal, didn't he, when Dublin were down to 14. And that's what I mean. Like, people were talking, someone asked me before the game, will Mayo score a goal? And one of the lads said, yeah. And I was like, Dublin don't concede goals. They've got one of the best defensive records to go, one of the best offensive records. And when Dublin were down 14 men and Kerry changed something, they put a full forward in there, they put Spillane to go with the likes of O'Shea and Clifford. That really kind of hurt the Dublin defence because they were stretched and there was more space on the pitch. And I think if Mayo did that, they tried to push higher up the pitch, maybe put O'Shea in there at 14 where they can't have, a sweeper there. And how many times when Dublin are defending that they've got Howard or Fenton in and around a small D just in case anything spills. And that's what I mean. If they attack the game, look, and that's what I mean about Mayo. Like, there's so many if, buts, and maybes for Mayo when you think if this happened. But no, it's probably unfair to call them celebrity losers or anything like that. But I'm sure, in 10 or 15 years' time, not that there'll be an inquest, but there'll certainly be players discussing this in 10 or 15 years' time of why we didn't win an All-Ireland. And I'm sure there'll be a few good books to come out of it.
Yeah, McDade's black card. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's one of them where you see that incident happen about 20 times on the pitch. I said to you, and look, to be honest, the referee, it's right in front of the ref. He has to give a black. I think there should be, like, it's not what the black card was brought in for. I think it should be, if you do that, I think it's kind of as an offensive block and to stop someone tracking their man. I think it could probably be a yellow as opposed to a black. There's so many of those blocking incidents you see, to stop someone get forward. Kevin Mack for Dublin is probably one of the best in the game at that. Just a little subtle block. You see it in football or whatever. I just think, to black card someone for that is probably a little bit harsh. It's the letter of the law. It's the rule. But I think that they could probably change it. I mean, how many times can you say they should change GA rules?
Yeah, on that, I was watching Robbie McDade in that, and it depends. I agree with you totally. If that's his first time to do it, and if it's the thing that it's out of nowhere, that's not a black card. It's not the black card for. You're just ruining the game. But it depends. And I was kind of watching. Robbie McDade was doing that nonstop. He was doing it nonstop. So if he had gotten a warning from the referee before, and I don't know, I'm just speculating. If the referee had said to him, Robbie, stop the screen and stop it. You're not letting him get forward. I'll put you in the black next time. If he got that warning from the referee and the referee made him aware that he was watching him, because it is at the end of the day a black card offence. If that happened, he got the black card, fine. But if it's his first offence and the referee is only doing it, trying to make an example of it, that's not the right call. But again, in the end, it had no effect on the game because Mayo did take advantage of it. So we could be making a bit more of a point about it if Mayo had pushed on in that 10-minute period, but they didn't. So which I agree with Sean.
Yeah, on the Fitzsimons hit then, Stephen, live, did you think it was a foul?
Live, I thought it was...
Sorry, the Fitzsimons on Keegan.
Yeah, like live, I was like, oh, geez, it's definitely a foul. Actually, sorry, no, probably really initially when we didn't see the angles, I thought it was shoulder to shoulder. But then when we saw the replay, I was like, Jesus, this is hard. But then you put yourself into the players' kind of perspective there. the referee probably handled it okay. He was really committed to the tackle. It was a frontal charge. I don't think he could have pulled out of it. It didn't connect with the head. It didn't connect with the neck area. It was right to the chest. It was a frontal charge. Like, it's a foul, probably a yellow card at most. Like, just come on, Mick, you know better than that. Control your emotions a bit. But he went for the ball, couldn't pull out of it. That was it. There was nothing more to it. But yeah, probably initially in the heat of the moment, everyone went, yeah, send him off, get him out of there.
I thought because of the way the ball came out, I thought it was sort of a straight shoulder. I think it's one of them in the stadium. I'd say it's probably a referee's nightmare in a stadium that, you know, if that happens in the stadium, you've got, I don't know, 20,000 on the hill going mad if the ref gives it. You've got the Mayo fans not going mad if it gives it or asking for a red card. So it's probably one of them as a ref. It's probably a nightmare situation with the pace of it. At first, I thought it was a proper shoulder just because of the way the ball came out. But obviously it was, like Stephen said, a frontal charge. And the ref was pretty close to it, but maybe he probably saw the like Stephen said, the commitment and the full heartedness of it. Like, you know, it's nothing malicious, but I still think it's you know, technically on the rule book it's a foul. But no, I don't think it would have been a card to change the game, put it that way.
Yeah, although it would have got Mayo level in the game, but you did always feel Dublin had Mayo at arm's length. Stephen, moving to you, quick question, like, why didn't Mayo put Aidan O'Shea in to 14 from the off? You know, it was a big narrative coming into the game, and I was very, very surprised. Yeah, fair enough him going up for the throw-in, but it almost from there on he was out the field. And while he did get on good ball at times, he was sloppy sometimes with his passing. It was kind of mixed bag for O'Shea. I thought overall he did okay. Some people saying he had a terrible game. I thought he did okay personally, but I definitely feel he'd have made more of an impact if he was at 14 early on in the game.
Yeah, it was like, as we discussed, it was O'Shea of old. It was the old O'Shea from 2 or 3 years gone by. I think, I don't think James Horan fully trusted his midfield like we didn't fully trust him last week. I thought he needed more bodies around there to try to get primary possession, because they had anyone to feed it in. They probably felt it enough with O'Connor and Conroy inside. That if O'Shea could get ball into them and could win ball around the middle of the field, he'd have enough. But we discussed here on Thursday, like, they needed to treat him in there. He didn't affect Fenton, he didn't affect McCarthy that much, he didn't affect Howard when he came on. So I don't know if that was Horn's thinking. If it was his thinking, it didn't work, and it was disappointing, because I think I would like to see the treat him in there, and it would have given Dublin something to really think about. It wouldn't have pushed their forwards or their backs on into the play as much as they would if they knew they had Aidan O'Shea in there, because one quick turnover, a good long ball in, and you're in serious trouble. But like, they weren't in trouble with that at all. I think Dublin had their homework done. I'd say they nearly might have been expecting O'Shea to go out and let him go. So yeah, it's disappointing. But if Horn's thinking was like that, he got it wrong. He definitely got it wrong. But if it was something else and it just didn't come off, we didn't see it. Because I don't see the value of him being out there, especially the way he's played in there this year. He's in the shape of his life. Like, he's looking in really good shape. He's played a lot of good football. He's got a lot of good scores. So it's just disappointing in that regard.
I think he wastes too much energy out there. Like, he's running around, he's doing the donkey work that I think, you know, not to be disheartening to any of them, but I think Matthew Rowan or Conor Loftus can go through that sort of, you know, body work, if you like. And I think O'Shea, you kind of want him getting on the ball. I mean, he won a couple of frees. You could argue Johnny Cooper could have been black carded because of O'Shea, the kind of the turn he made. I think that's what O'Shea's good at, really, using his body well. And, you know, having him out doing the donkey work, I don't think it's for me. And him trying to, you know, put pressure on people. And I think he's that little bit slow to be midfield at inter-county level, because I just think he's always that little second off the pace, whether it's him putting in a late tackle or him, you know, wrapping his arm around, just because he's that, you know, split second off the pace. And I think that's probably where his big weakness is in midfield. Whereas if you put him in full forward, and like we said, I think if you know, you're trying to beat Dublin's press, you're trying to score goals against Dublin, you put 3 men inside and really make them think about, you know, where the sweeper's going to go. Is he going to go the left side, the right side? Who, you know, is he going to sit in front of O'Shea, and then all of a sudden Cillian O'Connor might have a bit of room? Whereas that, I just think they missed a trick there in that sense. And I still think in the first half, the Mayo forward line was very good, very fluid. And they got on a good lot of ball, good clean ball as well. I thought the ball in was very good from the Mayo forwards or the midfielders to get into the forwards. But, you know, I still think that having O'Shea doing the donkey work, I think he's just better suited, and he's captain, and he probably wants to do that. He probably wants to do it for the team. He wants to be not seen to be doing it, but I mean, if you're a young player and you see Aidan O'Shea put in, you know, a 60-yard run or whatever it is. But I think he's not best suited to that. And, you know, how many times have we been calling for him to be full forward? And, you know, maybe, like I said, you'd love to know whether it's his personal decision, whether he wants to be out there, or whether James Horan thinks he's best there, because it is a strange one now, because it's a long few years that we've been saying about O'Shea, and like Stephen said, he's into his 30s, and you know, you'd like to know it's James Horan's decision to put him there, but every manager seems to revert back to
Just on,
midfield.
yeah, I felt like you said, I felt Conroy struggled with O'Shea's absence as well, to be honest with you, and I thought he really missed him up there.
Yeah, because it's someone getting on the ball, and O'Shea, you know, tends to, you know, if you've Aidan O'Shea in there, Mick Fitz or whoever, or Davy Byrne isn't just thinking about Tommy Conroy, they're thinking about Aidan O'Shea and not trying to leave someone isolated with him. So it's just that fear factor, and Conroy or O'Connor can make a run off of it. And, you know, after O'Connor's goal against Tip, where, you know, 2 or 3 men get sucked into O'Shea and it's a quick hand pass, I thought that was a template for Mayo to go forward with. So, you know, you'd love to know what really goes on there. But Aidan O'Shea, how many times has he played well at full forward? Remember the Sligo game? I think he scored a couple of goals, and then I think that year they moved him back to 8 or 11. He's getting older now, so I presume the older he gets, and if he stays on next year, which more than likely will, I think he just got to stay in at 14 and save his energy.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Like we saw the best of Aidan O'Shea that we've seen for a long time this year, and that's why we all got a little bit excited when we saw Aidan O'Shea playing at 14. I really thought that this was going to make room for Tommy Conroy and really get Cillian O'Connor into the game. But I noticed as well, Cillian O'Connor was at around his own 45 at times as well, and Cillian O'Connor was really playing around the middle third, and it was even Tommy Conroy in there on his own. And Tommy's not a target player in there on his own who's going to hold up a couple of Dublin defenders. They needed 2-3 really good scoring threats in there. And just free up Aidan O'Shea, do the best thing for the team, and free up the 2 lads to score. But like even what Sean said on Thursday, that score he got where he used his body to turn, take the ball on the turn and put it over the bar. We didn't see any of that. We didn't see any of that in there, any of that danger, and it was just disappointing. So yeah, agree.
And the one time he probably he did do that was for Johnny Cooper, and I'm sure we might talk about the potential for a black card. But the one thing, like, Cillian O'Connor in and around is 45. I think that's probably part of him, and he wants to win so much. And maybe is that the sort of the mental thing that they're trying to do too much, if you like, and they're trying to cover every base, and they're trying to, you know, maybe whether it's they think Dublin's forwards are too good and they need to get bodies in and around that middle third or whatever it is. But I think it's just those things that they might necessarily do in a game, maybe against Tipperary. I know they're a Division 3 team, but I think, like I said, you always watch Mayo and you think they're desperate to win it and they're carrying all this baggage. But yeah, I think it was a mistake not to try O'Shea in there, especially with Conroy and O'Connor.
Yeah, Stephen, did you feel like at half time I thought Brian Howard coming on, because Stephen Cluxton had struggled with his kick outs going long. Like, straight away I think he caught his first one, if not second, and while he might not have been involved in terms of his kickouts most of the other time, it seemed like he was creating space, occupying Mayo defenders, and Dublin did pick up on that. Their kickout particularly, that was a struggle in the first half. I definitely felt he was the difference maker in the game, and probably should have started.
Brian Howard did win that game for Dublin. There was a real change in the tone of how Dublin were playing and the tone of the game once Brian Howard got involved, and his impact was extraordinary. And how we haven't seen more of him this year's championship is, and if he's playing in that kind of form, is odd. Like, he is somebody who's been one of the best footballers in the county over in the country in the last couple of years, and he's kind of drifted out of Desi's team since Desi's come in, and then he's called on him to have this impact when things weren't going 100% for him, and it just fixes and it just clicks into gear, and now Dublin stride off again. So yeah, Brian Howard was amazing, and that first catch really, like, if there was a crowd there, like if the crowd there, you just sense there would be this roar and a change in momentum and a change in the tone of the game. But we could just have to sense it ourselves at home. But like, just on that point, Dan, it was Dublin's bench. Like the strength that they have, to be able to have Michael Darragh Macaulay, Alan Pascal, Philly McMahon, Brian Howard, Paul Mannion, all these type of players to bring on, and who are Mayo are kind of relying on for a bit of impact. Players who are unproven at this level, players who played well for their club, but they haven't done a huge amount for Mayo in either the Connacht Championship or the All Ireland Championship, and they're having to go toe to toe with Paul Mannion, who has hot 5 All Irelands in his back pocket, or Philly McMahon, who's got 7 going for his 8. And it's just difficult. Like, it's just difficult when you've got that the depth of talent, and they've got that hunger, and they've got the knowledge, and they've got the backroom team to support and drive it. So Brian Howard coming on changed the game at that point, and then the rest of the subs coming on really drove it home. And once they started to unload that bench, there was no stopping. It was gone. That was a different point. And then that falls back to our other point of Mayo's game plan, trying to stick with Dublin until a certain point, was null and void because the strength that they were able to bring on just kicked that can down the road a bit more.
Yeah, Sean, you were very impressed with Brian Howard when he came on.
Yeah, and I think everyone knows about Brian Howard, and he was training very well apparently, and I expected him to start the semi-final, and for whatever reason he didn't, and he hasn't, and maybe I don't know what it is really, but he was outstanding, and it wasn't something that you didn't expect him to do. When he came on, you thought he'd have an impact. He's won All-Stars 2 years in the last 2 years, so it was probably more mystifying that he didn't start him. Same with Paul Mannion, and a lot of people's eyes, Paul Mannion's one of the most potent forwards in the country, maybe behind Clifford and Khan at the moment, and he didn't start. So there was interesting decisions from Desi, and whether it's sort of influenced by things that have happened over the last couple of months or whatever it was. But Brian Howard is an outstanding footballer, and he's one that could play in any position on the field. I think he's one of these modern players that could play in any position on the pitch. You see Conor Loftus, who when he burst on the scene was a sort of a full forward, a corner forward, now playing out in and around the middle for Mayo. And I think that's probably a sign of where Gaelic games has gone, where your likes of Adrian Spillane, like anyone could play anywhere really on the pitch, and as long as you've got the right physique and mind and mindset and kind of understand the game enough, because Brian Howard can come on at centre back, midfield, wing forward, could probably come on and play the sweeper role if you like for Dublin. But now he was outstanding and won a lot of good ball. And it's one thing that it was kind of hard because you didn't really see all the kickouts with all the replays and stuff, but Mayo seemed to dominate the kick out. And Oisin Mullen caught a couple of great kickouts in match one, and the pressure was really on Dublin. And considering that Dublin were down to 14 men, for the 10 minutes of the first half, and Mayo had dominated the kick out, and there's probably a few scars there. I don't think Cluxon had too many kickouts in that 10 minutes where you could say, yeah, they won it, or they won a lot of ball. So there's big questions on that. But like I said, Brian Howard was brilliant. Thought Niall Scully was brilliant in and around that position as well. And when you do think, oh, why isn't Brian Howard started this year? Or you look at Robbie McDade maybe, and he got 1-2 in the semi-final. You look at Niall Scully's probably had his best year shooing for an All-Star. Sean Bugler started and played well. It was probably a little bit maybe unlucky to come off. I thought he did okay, probably not enough in that wing forward role, but Brian Howard came on and was brilliant, and probably a late contender for man of the match.
Yeah, I thought Niall Scully, Stephen, was unbelievable. I actually thought he was the man of the match because I thought throughout the game he was Dublin's most consistent performer and kept it ticking, where a lot of the big names kind of dipped and then picked it up towards the end.
Yeah, and like we called out Niall Scully there last week as we probably one of the country's most underrated footballers, and he really dictates everything that Dublin have. That happens for Dublin, and the defence in Kilkenny and Con get a lot of applaudits, but I think everything that Niall Scully does goes under the radar a lot of the time, and it's just he has this effect on the game. He covers an awful lot of ground. He's a natural athlete, but he manages to string everything together. He's on so much ball. I'd love to know the number of possessions he does get on in the game, because it's just, if you're watching and you're really paying attention, he's on it every couple of minutes. He's on the ball, and some of them can be lateral passes, some of them can be backwards passes. He knows the times to attack. He knows the places to attack. He can find gaps where not everybody else can find gaps. He reminds me a little bit of Kieran Kilkenny from a few years ago, where Kieran was kind of like directing traffic around. He wasn't necessarily doing a huge amount. I remember Kieran Kilkenny, the game where he had 76 possessions of a ball. A lot of them were lateral, but he was just dictating what was happening for Dublin, like that number 10 in soccer almost, and just deciding when to attack. The quarterback in American football, the out half rugby, just deciding when we go, where we go, and when to go. But he also has that work rate of getting up and down the field all the time as well. So yeah, for me, Niall Scully and Brian Howard are real contentions for man of the match. Yeah,
Sean, final point then just on I kind of Con and Kilkenny, I kind of take them in together because I think both of them kind of had rough starts in terms of maybe getting dispossessed. Dublin really didn't seem to get them into the game, I guess, from the start after that first goal. But I think both of them kicked on, and towards the end, the two of them were absolutely magnificent, like both of them, and they both could play 11, 14. And it'll be interesting next year how Desi will go about it. Will they switch a lot more, or it just seems they're two like the best supreme athletes in the country, and there's no sign of them stopping or retiring anytime soon. Like they'll always be a constant in Dublin's teams for the next few years.
And the two thing about them is they could both play hurling for Dublin.
Yeah, I actually said in one of so Con's actually a better hurler than footballer, which I guess says it all really.
Tommy
And
Walsh
it's a worrying thing.
Tommy Walsh on News Talk said he'd be probably the best hurler in the country. I think he said Kieran Kilkenny was a minor supremo for Dublin at hurling and football, and it's kind of Kieran Kilkenny's age group, that 2011 All Ireland minor team that lost with the likes of David Byrne, Niall Scully, Jack McCaffrey was on that team, Kieran Kilkenny himself, that have sort of been the team that has driven this Dublin team onto the next level from the likes of Bernard Brogan and Paul Flynn and Philly McMahon and those guys. I think I think Kilkenny, I think Dublin missed him, and I was trying to encourage him to get on the ball. I think, when Dublin were struggling in that first 20 minutes, and Mayo had outscored them since the goal, and I kind of wanted Kilkenny because he's the one person I think Dublin, if they can get the ball to him, he can, like Stephen said, direct traffic or just try and get Dublin back playing. And I think that's probably where you miss him at 11 when he does play at 14. And then you've Con, who, to be honest, probably didn't have the best year up until the big game, and that's probably what makes him the player he is. And I know he was carrying a knock from the club championship, and he kind of wasn't at his fluent best, and early on had that goal chance where he went for goal, and then I think after that he really shone. And how can you mark Con and Kilkenny? And like I said, whatever happens with this Dublin team, you'd love to see them in the hurling colours as well. But two outstanding athletes, and two probably, it's hard with Dublin when you think of Cluxton and Fenton and Kilkenny as being the big three, and I'm sure you could argue Conor Callahan in there.
Yeah, Stephen, final point on Con and Kilkenny. I kind of take them as a pairing because, like I said with Tishawn, I just feel that the two of them are so like similar in a way, and they're so built similar, and it's almost sometimes you get them mixed up because like Kilkenny's playing at 14 but he's wearing 11, Con's playing 11, he's wearing 14. You're like, oh, is that Con, is that Kilkenny? But the two of them are just unbelievable, and like Sean says, they're two arguably better hurlers than footballers, which is a really worrying thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're phenomenal athletes, and like if you want to stop Dublin, you need to stop Kilkenny and you need to stop Con. If you stop one of them, it's not good enough because they'll cover for each other. You need to stop one of them, or you stop both of them, and throw Fenton into that mix too. But I don't think it would be very tough to stop Fenton. But they're athletes, and their work rate to get better and better and better and better and better. It's phenomenal to watch, and to see they come back every year and they've changed some part of their game. And I was actually delighted that Kilkenny scored a couple of points, because I think it's, how long had he played? How many times had he played Mayo that he hadn't scored a point against them? There was a bit of a curse talked about at the start of the game that Kilkenny hadn't scored.
And Lee Keegan, when he marked him, Kilkenny only had 8 possessions in that 17 final where he had 60. Keegan scored a goal where he had 60 possessions against Tyrone in the semi-final. So that just shows you it was a big day for him against Mayo. Duff,
exactly. Yeah, it definitely was. And I was delighted to see it, because these guys, especially the two of them, they work so hard. Like we saw, Con went away and did a lot of work on his physicality and his size, and they're guys who just continuously want to do better. So it was great to see, and two of the best, and they've been best for the last 10 years, how long they've been around, even when they were minor under 21. And it would be great to see them hurling, or even if they took 1 year on and 1 year off each. Like Kilkenny would go to the hurlers 1 year, then Con would go the next year, and they could both play centre forward then for Dublin, just not at the same time.
That's actually the best shout I've heard. Sean, finally we'll finish it off. But Brian Fenton, player of the year for you?
No, I'd probably go Kilkenny, just solely on the fact that he had been centre forward. He'd been someone that the ball kind of went through for Dublin, and now I think at full forward, he's shown the country that he can play really in any position on the pitch, and his point kicking is breathtaking. And for all the stuff he did during lockdown with those competitions he ran on his Instagram, I think he kind of deserves it this year. He's been outstanding, and it's great to see him in that new role. And it's probably one where the likes of Aidan O'Shea can play a lot of different positions, and you don't really know what his best position is. And I think you'd probably have to ask Kieran Kilkenny to see what position he fancies, because I know he plays midfield for his club. So I'm sure Desi Farrell has asked him or whatever, and his point kicking ability is unrivaled really inside there.
Yeah, Stephen, front of you. I personally think Brian Fenn deserves Player of the Year. Sean thinks Kilkenny. Any preference for you?
I think Kilkenny too. I'd say Kilkenny coming into the final. I don't think Fenton did enough to turn it over. I think Kilkenny's been phenomenal this year. I don't know. Fenton could win it, but I would fancy Kilkenny. I'd like to see Kilkenny do it. I think he's brought something different to his game this year that we haven't seen for the last couple of years. He had been that traffic coordinator for the past couple of years, and now he's taken it on. He's been a bit more of a target man inside, and he's getting a lot more scores. And for me, I'd like to see Kilkenny get it if it's going to be a Dublin player. I'd obviously prefer to see no Dublin player get it, but if I have to give it to a Dublin player, I'll give it to Kilkenny. Yeah.
Just looking at the betting there, Killian O'Connor, the only one shorter than 33-1 outside of Dublin, so the chances are. And actually, funny enough, I actually thought Fenton was fab, but going Irish, Kilkenny's like favourite first, so it'll be interesting to see who wins that. But listen, it's weird to say Merry Christmas to listeners there straight after an All-Ireland final review, but that's it. Will actually be the Allianz League will be back. I think is it the start of February, lads, on that new calendar that's going to be released probably this week, but it's going to be interesting now with Division 1 South, Division North, and a lot to talk about, I guess, over Christmas. So, yeah, after Christmas, we'll be back with a lot more Gav. Sure, we'll have you back, Stephen. You won't be too busy there with the Leinster Championship. Is that kicking off in January, did you say?
It's down to be 17th of January. We are waiting to get word tomorrow on confirmation of that because there's new government guidelines coming out. But as of now, we're getting elite status, and there's a trade like an intercounty game. So hopefully that goes ahead. We're really looking forward to it. We've been training since the start of December. So looking forward to that, and hopefully it goes ahead, and hopefully everyone's going to remain safe over Christmas.
Brilliant, absolutely. And listen, Stephen, we wish you well. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and I'm sure we'll have you back on to talk more Dublin GA, because Dublin will be a constant in the GA world for the next few years, in All Ireland finals, National League finals, and Leinster titles. So that's it. Yeah, listen, we appreciate it. Anyone listening, if you're watching on YouTube, bottom right, subscribe on YouTube. I'm sure YouTube listeners were entertained watching Stephen there trying to sort out his Wi-Fi while also conducting their All-Ireland review. I thought overall you did very well, Stephen, but just rather you out in front of everyone. I know that's at Tacton Sports social media, get us on that. And all that stuff, myself and Sean, wish you Merry Christmas, and thanks from Stephen as well.
Cheers, lads. Thank you.
See ya. Up the Dubs.